What up, Hope Biscuits? It's your girl Skitten, back at it again. And we all know that Vikings were pretty badass. We've all seen the movies, we've all seen the shows, okay? Vikings were pretty dope. Just not awful people, but brutal, okay? We will say that we're brutal people, but very straightforward as well, you know? Is that yours? Do I want it to be mine? It is mine now. That thing that was yours that I want is now mine. So we are here to watch crazy things that ancient Vikings did. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm gonna press play in 3.
From the creation of skiing to the eventual end of the Vikings, here are crazy things that ancient Vikings did.
Okay.
Number 12. Conquering the Brits.
Yeah,
In
that
the
was
early
pretty
9th
fucking
century,
crazy. Yeah.
the Vikings began to settle in the northern parts of the British Isles and remained there for around 300 years.
Yep.
They made a huge influence on the English language, and there are still around 400 words in English today that came from Old Norse. For example, get in Old Norse was geta, anger was anger, and happy was hap. Some words like arm and egg are exactly the same.
Okay.
Vikings made their biggest stamp on English with the days of the week, most significantly Thursday, coming from
Thursday. Yeah, that makes sense.
And what about the names of British towns? Places that end in by were most likely places where the Vikings settled, because by is Old Norse for town.
Okay,
Think about
that makes sense.
next time you visit Grimby, Kirkby, or Rugby.
Okay.
Number 11. Horns were out of fashion. Many people already know that Vikings didn't have horned helmets, but
Wait,
the
what?
traditional image
God damn it.
of
I
the
knew that
warrior's
already.
helmet went out of fashion around 100 years before the Vikings even existed. Vikings probably had helmets made from iron or leather.
Okay.
So how did this popular myth come about? It was thanks to men like Gustav Malmström and Carl Emil Doppler, who added the horns into costume designs for a very successful opera in the 1870s.
Oh,
Number
okay,
10.
okay. I feel it.
Farming before
But how is that a crazy thing that Vikings did? That's not crazy. That's just common sense. I mean, look, bro, you can't be wearing stuff that's over a century out of fashion on your helmets. Can't do it. The other Vikings would laugh at me, Mom, if I had horns on my helmet.
We have a
I'm sorry,
stereotype.
what did you say?
Farming before fighting.
Okay.
We have a stereotypical image of a tall, strong brute of a man,
Yes.
ready for battle.
100%.
But most Vikings were actually farmers.
Okay.
It is true that there was still some raiding and stealing going on. However, the illegal income went towards the upkeep of their farms. The tools we
okay.
use nowadays have improved a lot since the Vikings' times, but the animals and crops that were farmed are more or less the same as today. Vikings grew barley, rye, oats, peas, beans, onions, and root vegetables. They raised cattle, sheep, goats, horses, chickens, geese, and even ducks. Number 9. How to start a fire, Viking style. It has been millions of years since the discovery of fire.
Right.
So, it's natural that over time, humans have thought of new and easier ways to start one. The Vikings discovered
the most efficient way is to listen to your homie's album. Hey. Oh God, I cracked myself up.
unique way to do this by using urine and mushrooms.
Excuse me?
First, they would take some Formis formentarius, a type of fungi, and peel and slice it. The slices were charred in order to make the fungus char cloth. To take things to the next level, the Vikings boiled the cloth in urine. We would love to know how the
Excuse me?
Vikings discovered that this actually worked.
That what? Wait, so then what happened? I'm so confused. So then they just burned it? Really? How did they come up with... I'm so confused.
Number 8. Traveling to the afterlife by ship.
Well, I mean, a lot of cultures believed that you travel to the afterlife via ferry. So it's like unsurprising that the Vikings also had their own version of that.
Vikings believed in various realms of the afterlife. Valhalla and Folkvanger were realms for Viking warriors who had died during battle. Helgafell was for Vikings who had been good during their lives.
Okay.
And the Helheim.
And so people being good during their lives were not necessarily the warriors. Or they were separate, like people who just like farmed their whole life or something? Okay.
It was a realm for the Vikings who had died a disreputable death. When a Viking was buried, he was buried with his most important possessions, including his sword.
Okay.
This is because they believed they could take these items into the afterlife with them. Archaeologists have found Viking grave goods, which are burial sites with stones shaped like ships.
Nice.
Some chiefs and kings were even buried inside an actual ship. This practice wasn't just saved for men. Some women of high status were also buried in ships with fine tapestries in their grave goods.
Okay.
Number 7. The brutal side of Vikings. Many of our modern films, cartoons, and comics depict Vikings in a way that is generally not true. When it comes to slavery, though, Vikings were quite terrible. During the Viking period, an estimated 10% of the Scandinavian population could have actually been slaves.
Jesus.
Slaves
10%.
may have been captured, kidnapped, or voluntarily turned themselves over to the Vikings to pay off debts.
Okay.
The fortunate slaves had the usual role of obeying their master. The less fortunate became human sacrifice.
What movie is this from? Yeah, what movie is this from with Mads Mikkelsen in it?
Sacrifices. Vikings believed that just like their worldly goods, their slaves could be taken to the afterlife and offered to the Norse gods.
Oh no.
In 1988, a Viking grave was found near Stockholm. Inside were the bones of Mooseman.
Oh no.
His weapons, a shield, and moose antlers. Next to him were the remains of a beheaded slave with no grave goods. Strangely enough, some slaves and even wives volunteered for this job. Number 6. Pirates of the Land. In Old Norse, the word Viking means pirate raid.
Okay.
Pirates historically stole at sea, which is why people don't refer to Vikings as pirates. With that in mind, Vikings did steal and even bury their treasure. The largest Viking treasure was found on a farm in Sweden in 1999. It was a collection of 14,295 silver Islamic coins.
Okay.
As well as from other countries. Nearby, there was another collection of bronze objects. In total, the silver weighed 67 kilograms.
God damn.
And the bronze more than 20 kilos.
So who does that belong to? Like, does it just belong to the person who found it, or does the state swoop in and confiscate that shit?
Archaeologists continued to dig on and around Spilling's farm over the next few years. More than 700 objects were found in total.
Jesus.
And not only silver coins, bronze, copper, iron nails, clothespins, chains, and semi-precious tools were also found.
Just buried? Were they burying them on purpose, or did they just end up under the ground over the centuries? Like, some of that stuff doesn't make any sense for you to bury them.
Number 5. Would you compete against a Viking? Vikings loved sports and competitions.
Okay.
They played many board games, although the dice wasn't what it looked like now.
Okay.
The rectangular shape makes us question how fair the game actually was. Outdoor sports included archery, javelin, and various types of wrestling. One being water wrestling.
Water wrestling. That sounds
was
exhausting.
Actually the great invention of the Vikings, needing an efficient way to move across the snow. Getting from A to B involved a lot of skiing.
Makes sense.
So did hunting.
Makes sense.
One ski was longer in order to glide, and the other was shorter, used to push the Vikings across the snow. A traditional game for the Vikings was Natalikur.
A who?
Simply translated to ball game. Nobody's really sure of the rules of the game, but we do know there are 2 teams,
Okay.
a bat and a ball, and it could be played on grass or ice.
Okay.
It was such a popular game that tournaments were held each year, and they would last up to 2 weeks.
It's the Viking version of baseball, I guess.
People built huts nearby so they could just simply live there while playing the game.
Wow. Okay.
Number 4, clean freaks. Again, despite the rumor of Vikings being somewhat barbaric, they were actually very clean. Their cleanliness is backed up in both writing and archaeological finds.
Okay.
Razors,
Love that.
tweezers, and ear spoons have been found.
Ear spoons.
But one of the
is a
most common
disgusting
objects
term.
is the comb. The soap that Vikings made for washing was very strong. It was so strong that it was also used to bleach their hair.
God
Apparently,
damn.
blondes were favored among the Viking tribes. Go figure.
If it bleaches your hair, bro, imagine what it did to their skin. No wonder they were so goddamn pale.
Saturday was washing day, coming from the Scandinavian word lordag. This suggests that unlike the Anglo-Saxons, who bathed once or twice a year,
Right.
the Vikings bathed each week.
Right. As you should. I mean, obviously you should bathe more than once a week, but come on, guys. Come on. Like, it is so crazy to me that the Anglo-Saxons had to be taught how to clean themselves. Like, crazy.
Number 3, women. There were no female
Hey,
Vikings.
it's fucking Lagertha from the fucking Viking show. Yes.
Mainly because the Old Norse word Vikingar was only for men. The Norse women would cook, clean, raise the children, and sew. Nothing really all that surprising there. What is different is that they had very similar rights to the men. Women could own their own property and even ask for a divorce. But the
Be like, look, nigga, I don't like you no more. We donezo.
women took to a marriage she could take with her if there was a divorce. Even though many marriages were arranged for women between the ages of 12 and 15, they had some input into the arrangement. If a Viking passed away, the home wouldn't simply be passed on to the next male relative.
Okay.
Instead, it was the women who took the role of running the family.
Okay.
There's very little evidence of female
Relatively
warriors.
progressive.
According to Saxo Grammaticus, a 12th century Danish historian, there were communities of women that trained in skills needed for war. These women were known as shield maidens. Number 2.
Being a shield man sounds pretty
Viking
lit.
in the blood. Eric the Red is probably one of the most famous Vikings. He founded the Norse settlement in Greenland. His son, Leif Erikson, may not be as well known, but he certainly made an important discovery.
Isn't there like a Leif Erikson holiday or something? Like, pretty sure he's pretty well known.
The Americas. We can hear you all shouting, but that was Christopher Columbus.
No, it wasn't. Everybody knows.
Erikson.
Everybody actually knows that it wasn't Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus was a fraud and a loser.
Beat him by about 500 years.
Yup.
Landing in the area of Newfoundland and Labrador in Canada. There isn't a great deal known about the Vikings settling in America, but there is some proof in an area called Les Olmedos. The remains of 8 buildings, stone oil lamps, bone knitting needles, and stone weights have been found.
Okay.
It was lucky that Leif Erikson turned out so well and strong. The Vikings had a habit of abandoning their weak or sick children.
Jesus.
Number 1. The end of an age. Or maybe not. The Viking Age didn't just die out, nor were they conquered. 1066 is a year frequently associated with the end of the Viking Age.
Yeah, because of the Norman invasion.
It's when the Battle of Stamford Bridge took place. The Norwegian king, Haraldr, was killed while trying to reclaim part of England. From here, Viking raids just gradually stopped, and rather than being known as a Viking, people became known by the country they actually came from.
Okay.
But the Vikings live on with us. A genetic study carried out in the UK compared DNA from modern-day men to that of the Vikings by looking at the Y chromosome markers.
Okay.
Approximately 930,000 men in Britain can claim to be the descendant of Vikings.
God damn.
Hey, thanks for watching the video.
Well, that was some pretty interesting facts about Vikings. I don't know, man. I know that like there weren't like a lot of women warriors, but I like to think that had I been a Viking, I would have been a shield maiden. Let me know down in the comments below if you think you are the descendant of a Viking. Other than that, peace out, Hope Biscuits. It's getting lit.